Daf Yomi, Tractate Zevachim, page 29a, top of the page, with the word Lo Yerav Bo Machshavos Acheros, or Lo Yerav Bo Machshavot Acherot, indicates that to render an offering pigul, the priest does not mix other improper intentions. This is in the middle of a sentence from the previous Amud, so I'll just read out how it started. The phrase lo yachshav, neither shall be credited. We're talking about the subject of pigul when someone has a thought about the sacrifice to eat it outside the place or outside the time disqualifies it. So the term he who offers indicates that pigul is disqualified at the time of offering due to improper intent, and it is not disqualified on the third day literally. And when the verse states it, this indicates that the verse is speaking of a disqualification of the offering only, but it is not speaking of the priest who is not disqualified from the priesthood through such intent. Lo yechashev, the phrase neither shall be credited, that's the last line of 28b. Now we're at top of 29a. Lo yera b'machshavos acheros indicates that to render an offering pigul, the priest does not mix other improper intentions with intent of pigul. If he has more than one type of improper intent, the offering is disqualified, but it is not rendered pigul. Pigul zechus limikomo. When the verse states pigul, this is referring to an offering that one had intent to consume outside its designated area. I always wondered how would you prove that someone had, how can you convict someone of pigul if this whole thing just happened in their own mind? It'd have to be an incredible honor system of just, that you have to leave it up to the person to be so honest that, they say, I had this particular thought and it was wrong, and they'd have to confess it. Or do they have to speak it out? I think it's just a thought. If someone thinks that it's going to be eaten, so how can you convict someone of that? They have to confess it. They have to say, I thought that it was going to be eaten outside a designated area or outside of time. Here it's saying just designated area. Anyway, and since the verse states it shall be and not they shall be, this teaches that intent to consume half an olive bulk beyond its designated time and intent to consume half an olive bulk outside its designated area join together with one another to constitute the minimum measure required to disqualify the offering. והנפש האוכלת ממנו אחד ולא שניים ואיזה זה חוץ לזמנו שגמר עוון מנוטל לדמה לזין bet. Zion bet is we had something with Bama, and Zion is, I forgot what Zion is. Zion is Zevachim? No. What's the Zab? I remember it. I know that Beis is Bama. That I know. But I don't remember what the Zion is. It's either Zman. I think it's Zman. Zman and Bama, I think. Maybe it's Zevach? I'm going to spend another moment trying to find it. If I don't find it, I'm going to move on. Here you go. The Zion is Zman. Yep. Zman. Okay. So what it's saying here is that finally when the verse states, and the soul that eats of it shall bear his iniquity, the term of it indicates that only one of the above disqualifications carries the penalty of karet, but not two of them. And which is this? Is intent to consume the offering both beyond its designated time, as one derives by way of verbal analogy between iniquity and iniquity from notar, Leviticus 19:8. That bear his iniquity means that one is liable to receive karet. The comparison is apt, since notar is similar to intent to consume the offering beyond its designated time, in that both prohibitions share the features mentioned about that form. The acronym Zion, Bet, Zman, and Bama. Amalei Rabba B'Lerave, Didach Shishim Darash Chadash Diyu, My Darash Tabei, Yahu Miwei Limim Kom Shehei, Mishunash Benam, Bivasu Be'Murim. Rav Papa said to Rava, according to your opinion, in what way do you interpret the reference to the third day? Leviticus 19 verse 7. In the Torah portion that begins, you shall be holy, Kedoshim. Rava responded, that verse is necessary to teach that a given location is considered to be outside the offering's designated area only if it is so in three ways, meaning outside the permitted limits of the blood, of the meat, and of the sacrificial portions. The Gemara asks, why not let me derive the halacha from the verse, and if any of the flesh of his peace offerings be at all eaten on the third day, Leviticus 7:18. Since the merciful one expresses that the verse as well as the term third, since Rava derives the disqualification of intent to consume an offering outside its designated area from the verse, why not let him derive this halacha from the verse as well? Amar Ravashi, Amarit Nishmate, Kamar Masna, Amarit, Imeasam Habamina, Shlishi, Prat Pigul, Klal Vinase Klal Musaf al Prat, Veit Rabba Shar Mekomas, Kamashman. Ravashi said, I stated this halacha before Rav Matana, and he said to me, if one were to derive this halacha only from there, Leviticus 7:18, I would say the term third is a detail, and the term pigul is a generalization. And wherever a detail is followed by a generalization, the generalization becomes an addition to the detail, and consequently, all other areas are included as well. The additional verse teaches us that the halacha includes only those areas that are outside in three ways. Tarabanan, im echoliachem nimsal zevo shlomo, Omer Rab Eliezer, kof oznecha lishmoa, b'machshev lechol v'mizimcho b'yom hashlishi, hakatuv b'nebel, ela, ochel v'mizimcho b'yom hashlishi, amarta achal shehu kasher, yachzor v'yipasel. The sages taught with regard to the verse, and if any of the flesh of his peace offerings be at all eaten on the third day, it shall not be accepted. Leviticus 7:18. Rabbi Eliezer said, bend your ear to hear the true meaning of the verse. The verse is speaking of one who intends to partake of his offering on the third day. Or perhaps it is referring only to one who actually partakes of his offering on the third day, per the straightforward meaning of the verse. But that cannot be. Would you say that after the offering is fit for the first 2 days, it should then be disqualified retroactively by being eaten on the third day? Amar lo Rabbi Akiva, Hein, Matzino Zava Shomeras Yom Keneged Yom, Shem Echaz Chaz Tahara, V'chem Jraos Sasru, Av Ata Al Titma Al Ze, She'af Al Pi Shehuchshar, She'achzor V'yibazed. Rabbi Akiva said to him, yes, it could be disqualified retroactively. After all, we find, with regard to a man who experiences a gonorrhea-like discharge, or a woman who experiences a discharge of uterine blood after her menstrual period, or a woman who observes a clean day for a day when she experiences a discharge, that they all have the presumptive status of a purity after immersing. But once they have seen another discharge the same day, they have negated this status retroactively, and everything they had touched after immersing becomes impure. Therefore, you as well should not be surprised about this offering consumed beyond its designated time, and even though it was rendered fit, it may then be disqualified retroactively. Amar le, Rabbi Eliezer said to him, Harehu omer hamakriv b'shat hakrava hu nifsal, ve'eno nifsal b'shlishi, o eno omer hamakriv, ela ze kohen hamakriv, כשהוא אומר אותו, בזבח הוא מדבר, ואינו מדבר בכהן. Rabbi Eliezer said to him, but the same verse says, he who offers it, indicating that the offering is disqualified at the time of his offering, and it is not disqualified on the third day. Or perhaps, when the verse says, he who offers it, this is referring only to the priest who sacrifices the offering, indicating that he is disqualified. But if so, it would have been enough for the verse to state he who offers shall not be credited. Therefore, when it states instead, neither shall be credited to he who offers it, this indicates that the verse is speaking to the offering and is not speaking of the priest. לפי שנאמר לו שיחל לשלם יכול נדרה ולא ירצה תמרה ורצה עושה ולא ירצה פן יחל נדרה ולא ירצה. Rabbi Azai says, why must the verse state it? It is necessary because elsewhere it is stated, when you shall vow a vow to the Lord your God, you shall not delay paying it. For the Lord your God will require it from you, and it will be sin in you. Deuteronomy 23:22. One might have thought that even one who is late in fulfilling his vow is included in it shall not be accepted. Leviticus 7:18. Therefore, the verse states it to indicate that it, an offering of rendered pigul, is included in the halacha of it shall not be accepted. But the animal of one who is late in fulfilling his vow is not included in the halacha of it shall not be accepted. לא יחשב מחשבה הוא נפסל באינו נפסל בשלישי. Acherim say, one can conclude that the verse in Leviticus 7:18 is referring to improper intention rather than improper consumption from the phrase neither shall it be credited, which indicates that the offering is disqualified by improper intention and it is not disqualified by consumption on the third day. Ben Azai דזבח הכתוב בדבר בכהן מנהלה אי בית אימה נפקא למדחרים ואי בית אימה מדכתיב לא ירצו ולא ירצה זבחו. The Gemara asks, and Ben Azai, who interprets the term it as excluding vows that were fulfilled late, from where does he derive that the verse is speaking of the offering and not of the priest? The Gemara responds, if you wish, to say that he derives it from the statement of Acherim that the verse rules out disqualification on the third day itself. And this would be necessary only if the verse is referring to the offering and not the priest. Or, if you wish, say instead, from the fact that it is written, they shall not be accepted, Leviticus 22:25, and it shall not be accepted, Leviticus 7:18, it is evident that the verse is referring to an offering which may be accepted or may not be accepted. ונעזי אותו ולא ירצה ומחר נדרום ולא ירצה מאחר נפקה ולאחר נפקה ותעני אחר ואירם יכול יהיה יכול שיהיה שנעשה. The Gemara asks, and with regard to the statement of Ben Azai, that one derives from the word it, that it, meaning people, is included in the halacha of it shall not be accepted, but the animal of one who is late in fulfilling his vow is not included in the halacha of it shall not be accepted. Is this halacha derived from here? It is derived from the statement of Acherim as it is taught in the Braita. Acherim say, one might have thought that a firstborn animal whose first year passed, during which time it ought to have been sacrificed, should be, that was 29b, like disqualified, consecrated animals, and it should be disqualified from being sacrificed as though it had developed a blemish. And hopefully we'll continue after the break. After the break, we'll continue with 29b. Continuing on 29b, Zevachim 29b. the words Talmud Lomar. We left off with saying that Acherim say one might have thought that a firstborn animal whose first year passed, during which time it ought to have been sacrificed, should be like disqualified consecrated animals, and should be disqualified from being sacrificed, as though it had developed a blemish. So then we're saying Talmud Lomar. Therefore the verse states, and you shall eat before the Lord your God in the place which he shall choose to place his name there. The tithe of your grain, of your wine, and of your oil. And the firstborn of your herds, and your flocks. Deuteronomy 14:23. The verse juxtaposes the firstborn animal to the tithe of grain to indicate that just as the tithe is not disqualified by being kept over from one year to the next, Deuteronomy 14:28. So too the firstborn animal is not disqualified by being kept over from one year to the next. If so, one already derives from this verse that an offering is not disqualified even if it is brought late. Eat Where were we? Yitzchak. The Gemara responds, Yitzchak, so good, אבל קודשים בדמי הרצון ענינו הם לא לרצון כמו שלנו. The Gemara responds, nevertheless the verse cited by Ben Azai was necessary, as without it, it might enter your mind to say that this matter applies only to a firstborn which is not for acceptance, meaning it does not serve to atone for any sin and is merely a gift for the priest. But with regard to other sacrificial animals that are for acceptance, saying that they shall not affect acceptance when brought late. Therefore, the verse teaches us that even those others are not disqualified when brought late. The Gemara asks further, but still, isn't this halakha derived from a brayta elsewhere? The verse states, when you shall vow a vow to the Lord your God, you shall not delay paying it. For the Lord your God will require it from you, and it will be sin in you. Deuteronomy 23:22, indicating that there is there is sin in you, but there is no sin in your offering, and therefore it is not disqualified due to the delay. But also, אם כן מבקשים ממנו ממון ואין שנאמר, אם אין לך לשלם, למה ייקח משכבך מתחתיך? והיבון דיברת אחר, נמי מייסה, כמשמע. The Gemara responds, Ben Azai requires that verse to teach a different halacha. The phrase, and it will be sin in you, indicates that there will be sin in you, but there will not be sin in your wife. It might enter your mind to say, since Rabbi Elazar said, and some say that it was Rabbi Yochanan who said, a man's wife does not die unless his creditors ask him for money that he owes, and he does not have it. As it is stated, if you do not have it with what to pay, why should he take away your bed from under you? Proverbs 22:27. Therefore, if one's wife also dies for this transgression of the prohibition, you shall not delay, since one has failed to fulfill his commitment. Consequently, the verse teaches us that the sin is imputed to him alone. The brightest stated that Acherim say, the phrase "neither shall it be credited" indicates that the offering is disqualified by improper intention, and it is not disqualified by consumption beyond its designated time on the third day. The Gemara asks, and Rabbi Eliezer, who derives his halacha from a different source, what does he do with the phrase "neither shall it be credited"? שנאמר, לא יחשב, לא יראה בו מחשבות אחרות. The Gemara responds, he requires it for that which Rabbi Yanai says. As Rabbi Yanai said, from where is it derived with regard to intentions that they displace one another, meaning that an additional improper intention prevents the offering from being rendered pigul, as it is stated, neither shall it be credited, indicating that an offering is rendered pigul only if the priest does not mix other improper intentions with intent of pigul. V'Rav Mori masni amar v'yanai minayin lemachashev v'loshim shu lo yike tamanov lechashev. And Rav Mari teaches that Rav Yanai says, from where is it derived that one who has improper intentions with regard to sacrificial animals is flogged like one who transgressed a prohibition? The verse states, neither shall be credited, meaning one reads the verse as if it states one shall not have improper intention. Lo yichashev. Don't have bad machshavot. Amar le Rava shel Amari lav shein by ma'asehu v'chol lav shein by ma'aseh no yken alav. Amar le Rav Yehuda hi damar lav shein by ma'aseh lo yken alav. Rav Ashi said to Amari, but it is a prohibition that does not involve an action. It's only a thought. And the principle is that for transgressing any prohibition that does not involve an action, one is not flogged. Rav Mari said to him, is in accordance with the opinion of Yehuda, who said, for transgressing a prohibition that does not involve an action, one is flogged. And that's the end of that. Starting a new Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Zeh klal. This is the principle. Kol ha-shoichet v'mekav v'mahalech v'zoyrek. Le'echol le'oshidak v'le'echol le'haktil le'oshidak v'le'haktil. Kezayis. Chutz l'mkomo pasul. Ve'ein boi korais. Chutz l'zmano pigul v'chayav l'korais. U'ilvad sheyakrev ha'matir k'mitzvaso. This is the principle. With regard to anyone who slaughters the animal, or who collects the blood, or who conveys the blood, or who sprinkles the blood, with intent to partake of an item whose typical manner is such that one partakes of it, for example, the meat of the offering, or to burn an item whose typical manner is such that one burns it on the altar, if his intent was to partake of or to burn the measure of an olive block outside its designated area, the offering is disqualified. But there is no liability for karet for burning or partaking of it. If his intent was to do so beyond its designated time, the offering is pigul, and one is liable to receive karet for burning or partaking of it, provided that the permitting factor in the blood is sacrificed in accordance with its mitzvah. Keitzad Kerav Matzah Kimitzvah Aser Shechad B'shtika Kibel V'hilach V'zorak Chutz L'zmano O Sheshar Chutz L'zmano V'kibel V'hilach V'zorak B'shtika O Sheshar Kibel V'hilach V'zorak Chutz L'zmano Zeu Shemach V'atir HaMitzvah. How is the permitting factor sacrificed in accordance with its mitzvah? If one slaughtered the animal in silence with no specific intent, and he collected and conveyed and sprinkled blood with intent to burn or partake of the offering beyond its designated time, or if one slaughtered it with intent to burn or partake of the offering beyond its designated time, and he collected and conveyed and sprinkled the blood in silence, or if one slaughtered the animal and collected and conveyed and sprinkled the blood with intent to burn or partake of the offering beyond its designated time, that is the case where one sacrifices the permitting factor in accordance with its mitzvah. Ketzad ukama tzarich mitzvah shakal chutz limkoma kibel v'hileh b'zor chutz lizmano o shishach chutz lizmano kibel v'hileh b'zor chutz limkoma o shishachat kibel v'hileh b'zor chutz limkoma lizmano. How is the permitting factor not sacrificed in accordance with its mitzvah? If one slaughtered an animal with intent to burn it, or partake of it outside its designated area, and he collected and conveyed and sprinkled the blood with intent to burn it, or partake of it beyond its designated time, or if one slaughtered the animal with intent to burn it, or partake of it beyond its designated time, and collected and conveyed and sprinkled the blood with intent to burn it, or partake of it outside its designated area, or if one slaughtered the animal and collected and conveyed and sprinkled the blood with intent to burn it, or partake of it outside its designated area, these are cases in which the permitting factor is not sacrificed in accordance with the mitzvah. HaPesach. Okay. HaPesach v'chaz shalosh shmon v'kivu l'hilech v'zoak. Chutz lizmano o shishach chutz lizmano v'kivu l'hilech v'zoak shalosh shmon o shishach v'kivu l'hilech v'zoak v'zoak shalosh shmon zehu shelo kara b'matir mitzvah. So, similarly, in the case of the paschal offering and the sin offering, that one slaughtered not for their sake, and one collected and conveyed and sprinkled the blood with intent to burn it, or partake of it beyond its designated time, or if one slaughtered the paschal offering, or a sin offering with intent to burn it, or partake of it beyond its designated time, and he collected and conveyed and sprinkled the blood not for their sake, or that one slaughtered the paschal offering or sin offering, and collected and conveyed and sprinkled their blood not for their sake, that is the case of an offering whose permitting factor is not sacrificed in accordance with the mitzvah. Therefore, kazayis b'chutz, kazayis b'machol, kazayis b'chutz, kachatzi zayis b'chutz, kachatzi zayis b'machol, kachatzi zayis b'machol, kachatzi zayis b'chutz, basul, ve'ein bo kaches. If one performed one of the sacrificial rites with the intent to eat an olive bulk outside its designated area, and an olive bulk the next day, or an olive bulk the next day, and an olive bulk outside its designated area, or half an olive bulk outside its designated area, and half an olive bulk the next day, or half an olive bulk the next day, and half an olive bulk outside its designated area, the offering is disqualified, and there is no liability for karet for burning or partaking of it. Amar Yehuda Zeklal. אמר יהודה זה הכלל, כל שמחשבת הזמן קדמה למחשבת המקום, תיגול. Yehuda said that this is the principle. In any case where the intent with regard to the time preceded the intent with regard to the area, the offering is pickle, and one is liable to receive karet for burning or partaking of it. Okay. V'chayin of kois, right? Kol shemachshavas הזמן קבל מחשבת פיגול חייב kois. ואם מחשבת במקום קדמה מחשבת הזמן פסול ואין בו kois. וכל אומרים זה וזה פסול ואין בו kois. לאכול כחצי זייס, להגדיר כזייס, חצי זייס, כשר, שאין אכילה, פרצה ומצטרפים. Okay, and if the intent with regard to the area preceded the intent with regard to the time, the offering is disqualified, and there is no liability for current for burning or partaking of it. And the rabbis say both this in that case, the offering is disqualified, and there is no liability for current for burning or partaking of it. If his intent was to eat half an olive bulk and to burn half an olive bulk, not at the appropriate time or in the appropriate area, the offering is fit because eating and burning do not join together. That's the Mishnah. Now the Gemara says, Amar Yidfa machloikes b'shtei avodas avoda achas divrei hakol eiru b'shabbos havi. Machshav havi. V'Rabbi Yochanan ma'arav b'avoda achas machloikes. With regard to the disagreement between Rabbi Yehuda and the rabbis concerning a case where one has intent with regard to both time and area, Ilfa says there is a disagreement with regard to two sacrificial rites, meaning where each intent was held during a different rite, but if both were held in the course of one rite, all agree that it constitutes a combination of intentions, and the offering is not rendered pigul. And Rabbi Yochanan says even if the intentions were both held in the course of one rite, there is still a disagreement. The Gemara asks, granted the Mishnah is understandable according to Ilfa, since the first clause of the Mishnah, if one slaughtered the animal in silence with no specific intent and collected beyond its designated time, etc., is referring to different intentions held in the course of two sacrificial rites. One can assume that the latter clause is referring to two rites as well. But according to Rabbi Yochanan, could it be that the first clause is referring to two rites and the latter clause is referring to only one rite?